Okay, so together we're going to relearn math. We're going to go over each one of these 22 topics. And by the end of this, you're going to feel like you have a nice overview of mathematics. Or if you've been in school before, it's been a while, you're going to relearn everything from scratch. But I'm going to make it as simple as possible and as quick as possible. So we're going to learn about fractions, we're going to learn about decimals, we're going to practice percentages, we're going to practice comparison signs, word problems, negative numbers, mixed numbers, improper fractions, all the things. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first one, we're going to talk about how fractions represent division. So if you see something like 10 over 2, that is a fraction. There's a numerator and denominator. The numerator is 10, the denominator is 2. This represents division. So you can say 10 over 2, or you can say 10 divided by 2, and 10 divided by 2 is equal to 5. So 10 over 2 is the same as saying 5. So I'll give you another example. So if it was 15 over 3, that's the same as saying 15 divided by 3, and that is also equal to 5. So sometimes you'll see on a test, okay, you'll see 4 over 2, but the answer choice will say 2, 3, 4, or 5. Well, in order to figure out which one it's equal to, you take the numerator 4 divided by 2, and you get 2. So the answer would be 2. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the second topic. The second topic is how to simplify fractions. So we're going to go ahead and, So how to simplify fractions. So say we have the fraction 4 over 8, and we want to simplify it. There's two ways to simplify it. We can start by saying, okay, what is a number that goes into both 4 and 8? The first number that most people think of is the number 2. So you divide the top and the bottom number by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. But you can continue even further because there's a number that also goes into 2 and 4. Again, that number would be 2. So you divide again by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So if you want to reduce 4 over 8, you can continue to divide by 2 until you get 1/2. The reason why I stop at 1/2 is because there's no number that goes into 1 and 2 that you can divide that fraction by that would make it any smaller. So 1/2 would be the answer. The second way that you could do 4 over 8 reduced is by trying to think of the largest number that goes into both 4 and 8. So I can divide 4 and 8 by 4, and that's the largest number that can go into 4 and 8. So 4 divided by 4 is 1, 8 divided by 4 is 2. So it's fully reduced just in one division step. So 4/8 can be reduced into 1/2. So the two ways is that you can keep dividing by smaller numbers, or you can find the largest number that goes into the top and the bottom number, divide by that, and you have your fraction simplified. All right, so how to simplify fractions, we went over that. So now we're going to practice how we can multiply decimals. So I really don't like multiplying by decimals, so I'm going to show you guys a trick. So say you have 0.25 times 62. So what happens sometimes when people multiply by decimals is that they start multiplying out and say you end up with an answer 3694. They're not really sure, okay, there's decimals, where do I put it? Do I put the decimal there? So what I like to do is I like to take the decimal point out. So 0.25 times 62. I like to take the decimal point out and then replace it at the end. Before I can take the decimal point out, I have to count how many decimal places there are in the problem. So there's 1, 2. So there's 2 decimal places. So I'm going to write that on the top so I remember. Now that I know that there's 2 decimal places that I have to put back in the answer, I can go ahead and take them out. And I can do 25 times 62. So when you do 25 times 62, 5 times 2 is 10. Carry the 1. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. Then I'm going to cross off the 2 and make a 0. 5 times 3 is 30. So bring down the 0. Carry the 3. 2 times 6 is 12. 12 plus 3 is 15. And then I'm going to add both of those rows. 0 and 0. 5 plus 0 is 5. 0 plus 5 is 5. 0 plus 1 is 1. And then remember, because I took out the decimal places, 2 of them, I have to replace the 2 decimal places. So I'm going to go ahead and put those back in my answer. So I'm going to go 1, 2, and that's where I'm going to place my decimal point. So my answer is going to be 15.5. So that's going to be my answer. So again, anytime you want to take decimal places out of your problem, you go ahead and do that. That's okay. But just remember to count them, write how many you took out so that you can write how many you have to put back when you do your answer. All right, so that's multiplying decimals. All right, so now we're going to talk about long division steps. So long division is something that I also don't really like. And the reason why I don't really like long division is because number 1, we're used to using calculators. And 2, long division requires a lot of steps. And sometimes it's easy to forget the steps. So if I have 250 divided by 10, sometimes you can start the long division problem and then get mixed up as to what the step that you're going to do next. So what I like to do is I like to write the steps on the side of my problem. So the steps are divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, and I like to make R for repeat. So repeat just means once you get to the bottom, go back up to the top and start over again until you're finished. So let's go ahead and follow these steps. So divide, I'm going to see if 10 can go into 2. Because it can't, I'm going to see if 10 can go into 25. 10 can go into 25 2 times, so I just divided, and I'm going to write the 2. Then I'm going to go ahead and multiply. So multiply 2 times 10, which is 20. So I multiplied. I'm going to put a check next to the M. Now I have to S, which is subtract. So I'm going to subtract 25 minus 20. That's equal to 5. Perfect. Now B stands for bring down. So I'm going to bring down the 0. And I'm going to repeat, meaning I'm going back to the top. So again, I'm going to divide. Now I'm dividing into 50. 10 can go into 50 5 times. So I divided. Now I'm going to multiply. 5 times 10 is 50. So I multiplied. Now I'm going to subtract. 50 minus 50 is 0. And there's nothing left to bring down, so then I must be done. So 250 divided by 10 is 25. So the steps are divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, repeat. You continue to repeat as many times as necessary until you get your answer. So that is how you complete long division if it's been a long time for you. All right, so now we're going to do number 5, percentages to decimals to fractions. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this, and let's do percentages to decimals to fractions. So if I have 25%, this also can be written as a decimal, and that also can be written as a fraction. So the way you change a percentage to a fraction is you start at the percent sign and you move it over twice, 1, 2, and you put a decimal point here. So 25% would be the same as 0.25. Then the way that you put 0.25 into a fraction is that you have to read the decimal. So this is kind of combining 5 and 6 because we're going to talk about how you read decimals. But the rate that we would read this decimal is you would read it as 25 hundredths. So 25 would be on the top, hundredths would be on the bottom. So you would write 0.25 as 25 hundredths or 25 over 100. So I'm going to show you this to you one more time. So I have I have 50%. How do I write that as a decimal? Well, I move it over twice, 1, 2, put the decimal here. So now it's 0.50. How do I write that decimal as a fraction? Well, I have to read it. This would be read 50 hundredths. 50 goes on top, hundredths goes on the bottom. 50 over 100. Okay, so we now know how to go from a percentage to a decimal to a fraction. But how did I know how to read that decimal? So let me go ahead and cross this off. Percentages to decimals to fractions. And now let's talk more specifically about reading decimals. So you read decimals. I'm going to write an example, 0.359. The way that you read a decimal is by knowing place values. So what that means is each one of these numbers are in a placeholder. So the 3 is in the tenths place, the 5 is in the hundredths place, and the 9 is in the thousandths place. Okay, that's important for us to know. So the way that we read this decimal is you read the entire number as if it's a regular number. So I would read it as 359. You could say 359. Then the way you end it is by saying whatever number is the last number, whatever place value it's holding, that's the word that you say after you read 359. So I would say 359 thousandths, and that represents this decimal point. Again, you read this whole number, then you read the place value. So let's practice that one more time. So if I have 0.33, so this 3 is in the tenths place, and this 3 is in the hundredths place. So how would I read this? I would say 33, and then whatever is the last digit, you're going to say, what is the place value it's in? Hundredths. So I would read this by saying 33 hundredths. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to rounding decimals. Now again, place values is very important when you're rounding decimals. So we're going to go ahead and take 0.365. So the rule, I'm going to tell you about the rules, but let's go ahead and ask a question first. I want to round 0.365 to the nearest hundredth spot. So we're trying to round to the nearest hundredth. So what we do is we have to underline the number that's in the hundredth spot. So remember, the 3 is in the tenth spot, the 6 is in the hundredth spot, and the 5 is in the thousandth spot. So what number would I underline? Well, I want to underline the number that's in the hundredth spot, or the place value that they want us to round to. So that number would be 6. So I'm going to underline the 6. So now I'm going to look to the right of the 6, and that number is 5. That number to the right is the number that's going to control what we do to the 6. So if the number to the right is 5 or above, so 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, then we're going to round the 6 up. So we round up. If that number to the right of the 6 is 4 or below, meaning 4, 3, 2, 1, or 0, then we're going to keep that number 6 the same. So write this on your piece of paper if you need to. 5 or above, you round up. 4 or below, you keep the same. So what is that number next to the 6 on the right of it? It's a 5. So because it falls in this category, 5 or above, we would round the 6 up. So we round the 6 up to the next number, the next highest number. So the next highest number would be 7. So the 3 would stay the same. The 6 will become a 7. And then you stop there. You cross off all the numbers that are after the number you underlined. They all drop off. The way that you know that you drop everything else behind it is that your answer should stop at where you're rounding to. So because I'm rounding to the nearest hundredths, my answer should stop with the last number being in the hundredths place. If I still had digits behind here, then that means I didn't round to the nearest hundredths. I need to drop all of the numbers that are behind the place value that I have to round to. So I'm going to give you another example to see if we can remember what we just learned. So if I have 0.45 and I want you to round to the nearest tenth. So the 4 is in the tenths place, so I'm going to underline the 4. I'm going to make an arrow to the next number on the right side. If it's 5 and above, I'm going to round 4 up. If it's 4 or below, then I keep 4 the same and drop all the other numbers. So I make an arrow to the 5. It's 5 or above, so I'm going to change the 4 to a 5. And I drop anything that was after this place value. So my answer would be 0.5. The reason why I stopped at 0.5 is because the 5 is in the tens place, and that's the place that we were rounding to. Okay, great job, everyone. We practiced or reviewed rounding decimals. Now let's practice multiplying fractions. I really love multiplying fractions. Multiplying fractions is one of my favorite things. So when we're multiplying fractions, it's super simple. So 3 over 4 times 4 over 8. So the way that you multiply fractions is that you multiply the top numbers. So I would do 3 times 4 over the bottom numbers that you multiply, 4 times 8. So 3 times 4 is equal to 12. And then 4 times 8 is equal to 32. So 12 over 32 would be my answer, but we would have to simplify. So the way that we simplify, we're going to talk about this in a little while, but the way that we would simplify this fraction is just, again, actually, no, we already covered it, didn't we? Yeah, we already talked about how to simplify fractions. So we should already know how to do this. No excuses, guys. Just kidding. Let's just review it one more time. So we're going to find the greatest number that can go into 12 and 32. So I'm guessing 4 can go into 12 and 4 can go into 32. So 12 divided by 4 is 3 and 32 divided by 4 is 8. So the answer would be 3 over 8. Again, when you're multiplying fractions, you just multiply the top numbers over multiplying the bottom numbers. So if I was multiplying 1/2 times 2/4, I would do 1 times 2 over 2 times 4. It would be 2 over 8, and that would reduce it to 1 over 4, and 1 over 4 would be my answer. Okay, great job, you guys. So now let's go ahead and go to adding fractions. Now, adding fractions is a little bit more difficult because you can't just leave the fractions with different denominators. You can't add them if they have different denominators. You have to first make sure that they both have the same denominator before you can go ahead and add them. So what we do in order to make them in the same denominator, there's a couple ways to do this. I'm going to show you the easiest way because you're most likely relearning math. If you're relearning math, you're probably relearning it for a purpose. Anybody who's trying to relearn math at a later age, you usually have access to a calculator, you usually have a phone that can do math. You're usually going back to school for something, not every single time, but a lot of you are going back to school. So I want to show you guys, okay, this is what I would do if I'm taking a test. Now, if you're just learning how to add fractions, I may make another video in the future, the long way around this. This is just the shorter version for people who are taking a test and need to learn how to add fractions. So they have to have the same denominator. So what I like to do is I like to just do the easy way. I multiply the top. So I'm going to multiply this top fraction by this bottom denominator. So I'm going to multiply both of these by 4. And then I multiply this bottom fraction by this denominator on top. So I literally just multiply by each other's denominators. So I do 1 times 4 is equal to 4. And then 2 times 4 is equal to 8. And then I do 1 times 2 is equal to 2. And then I do 4 times 2 is equal to 8. And so now I have 4 over 8 and 2 over 8. So 4 over 8 plus 2 over 8 is equal to 6 over 8. And if I want to reduce that, I just find a number that goes into both. I'm going to divide by 2, and it'll be 3 over 4. And that is my answer. I'm going to show that to you guys again. So if I'm adding 1/3 plus 1/2. So I write it like this, 1/3, 1/2. And then I multiply each of them by the opposite denominator. So for 1 over 3, I'm going to multiply it by 2. 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. And then for this bottom fraction, I'm going to multiply it by the top denominator, 3 and 3. 1 times 2 is 2. 3 times 2 is 6. 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. 2, 6 plus 3, 6 equals 5, 6. And that's the easiest way to add fractions with different denominators. All right, now we're going to go to problem number 10. Improper fractions to mixed numbers. So let me go ahead and erase some of this. improper fractions to mixed numbers. So do you remember what an improper fraction is and what a mixed number is? Some people remember, some people don't. So an improper fraction would be something like 15 over 8. The reason why it's called improper fraction is because it looks like it's written wrong. It looks like it's upside down. So normally when we see a fraction, the top number or the numerator is usually smaller than the denominator. So when it's an improper fraction, the top number or the numerator is usually larger than the denominator. So in this case, 15 is larger than the 8, so it would be called an improper fraction. So we want to change improper fraction to a mixed number. So a mixed number is a number next to a fraction. So 2.5 would be a mixed number. The reason why it's called a mixed number is because it has a whole number next to a fraction. It's kind of mixed, like trail mix. Sometimes it has M&Ms, sometimes it has different forms of nuts. The nasty kind has raisins. It's a mix of things. Well, a mixed number is a mix of whole number and a fraction put together. Sorry for people who like raisins, but I don't. I'm sorry. Anyway, so 15 over 8. So do you remember when we said 15 over 8 is the same as saying 15 divided by 8? Well, that can be applied to changing an improper fraction into a mixed number. How many times does 8 go into 15? So it goes in one whole time. So the whole number is 1. And then remember, there's a fraction next to it. So then it goes in one whole time. So it'd be minus 8. You minus 8 from the top number, 15 minus 8. And you'd be left with 7 over 8. Okay, let's do that again. What if it was 15 over 4? Okay, so you're going to see how many times does 4 go into 15? 4 can go into 15 3 whole times. 3 whole times would be 3 times 4. 3 times 4 is 12. So we would subtract 12 from the top number. 15 minus 12 is 3 left over. So it would be 3 out of 4 left over. The denominator of the fraction stays the exact same. The whole number represents how many whole times can that bottom number go into the top. And the 3 represent, okay, after it goes in that many times, what is left over? So you would have 3 3/4 as the mixed number. So improper fraction, mixed number. Okay, well done, you guys. All right, we're not going to give up. I know I'm getting a little tired. I'm running out of breath. But I'm doing this for you guys because I want you guys to learn, and I want you guys to have one place that you can come learn all of this versus having to look up 1,000 different videos and try to put them all together. I want you guys to just be able to relearn math. So if you have to pause the video right now, that's totally fine. Don't leave it. Pause the video, drink a Gatorade, drink what you like to have to drink, get your matcha tea, get your matcha latte, whatever it is. Take a pause, but don't leave the video entirely. Or just power through it because I'm going to try to power through it as well. So we have 11 through 22, and I promise to make this as easy and simple as possible. So question number 11, adding positive and negative numbers. So I really like this because I have a simple way to remember how to do this. So negative 10 plus 3. The way that you add them together is you ask yourself, does the negative have the larger number or does the positive have the larger number? So the negative is a 10 and the positive is a 3. So the negative has the larger number. So my answer is also going to be negative. Okay, then I'm going to ask myself, if I just look at the numbers by themselves, 10 and 3, what is the difference? 10 minus 3 is 7. So my answer would be negative 7. Let's try that again. Negative 12 plus 3. So the first thing I'm going to ask myself is, does the negative number or the positive number have the higher value? So the negative number is 12, the positive number is 3. So it would be 12 that has the higher value. So my answer is also going to have the same sign as the 12. So my sign is going to be negative. Okay? Then I'm going to just take the numbers by themselves and I'm going to subtract 12 minus 3. So 12 minus 3 is 9. So my answer is going to be negative 9. So you could do that with all kinds of problems. So say I start with, I like starting with a negative number because otherwise it's just like 15 minus 3, and that's just a regular subtraction problem. So I like to say, what is negative 15 plus 3? And so because the negative has the larger number, my answer is also going to be negative. And then I'm going to take 15 minus 3, which is equal to 12. So my answer will be negative 12. All right, very simple, isn't it? Multiplying two two-digit numbers. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and erase this. We're going to multiply two two-digit numbers. So we're going to multiply 35 times 46. Now, there's a standard way to multiply this out. So you could do 5 times 6 is 30, carry the 3. 3 times 6 is 18. 18 plus 3 is 21. Cross off the 6, bring down the 0. Then 5 times 4 is 20, carry the 2. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 2 is 14. And then you can add them both up. 0 plus 0 is 0. 1 plus 0 is 1. 2 plus 4 is 6. And then 0 plus 1 is 1. So my answer will be 1,610. That is considered the standard way of multiplication. But I like doing this. And this is considered new math. And I usually am not the hugest fan of new math because sometimes it confuses students more than old math does. But I like this. So what I do is I make a square and I divide it into 4 pieces. And then I break down 46 by doing 40 plus 6. Then I break down 35 by doing 30 plus 5. And then I multiply each of the squares. So I do 40 times 30, which is 1,200. Then I do 5 times 40, which is 200. Then I do 30 times 6, which is 180. Then I do 5 times 6, which is 30. I like doing that kind of multiplication because I could just do those in my head. Then you just add them all together. 1,200 plus 200 plus 180 plus 30. So it's 0, 11, 2, 4, 6. And that's my answer. So the difference between the standard version and this new math way, which is using a square model, is that I was able to do everything in my head. This sometimes confuses students only because sometimes students forget steps. Sometimes they forget to cross off the 6 and put the 0 down. Sometimes they forget to add the 2 later on. Sometimes they have a different number up there already and they add the wrong number. So a lot of things can go wrong with this standard form. So the reason why I like this method is because 30 times 40 is mental math. 5 times 40, mental math. 30 times 6, mental math. 5 times 6, mental math. And then adding them up together is much easier and I don't miss any steps. So that's another way that you can multiply two two-digit numbers. All right, so now we're going to talk about finding percentages of numbers. So what do I mean by that? Now, I really want you to pay attention to this one because this one appears on all standardized tests. You'll see a question that says something like, what is 30% of 75? Okay, so the way that we do this is 30% of 75. You change 30% into a decimal. So remember, changing percentage to decimal, we learned that earlier. We move it over twice. So 30% will be 0.30. The of represents multiplication, and the 75 stays the same. So 30% of 75 is the same as 0.30 times 75. So 0.30 times 75. We learned how to multiply by decimals. We can get rid of the decimal by counting it. 1, 2. So there's 2 decimal places. So that's how many we're going to put back in our answer. Then we're going to go ahead and take out the decimal. And we're going to do 30 times 75. That's going to be 2250. If you multiply it out, we put 2 decimal points back in the answer. So 22.5 is 30% of 75. Okay, so I'm going to show that to you again. I'm not going to do the whole multiplication out again, but I'm going to just show you what is 40% of 100. So you change 40% to a decimal, 0.40. Of means multiplication. 100 stays the same. you would do 0.40 times 100. You would count how many decimal points there are. That's 2 decimal places. Now we'll take out the decimal places and you do 100 times 40. So that becomes 14000. And then you put 2 decimal places back in, 1, 2. So the answer would be 40, or just 40. Okay, so that's how you find a percentage of a number. So we're going to go ahead and cross that off. And now we're going to find fractions of numbers. So if they told us, like, hold on. If they told us, what is 1/2 of 40? We're going to apply the same concept. But we could keep 1/2 the same if we want to. We'll keep it at 1/2 of means multiplication 40. So 1/2 times 40. So how do we multiply a fraction times a whole number? So 1/2 times 40 is the same as saying 1/2 times 40 over 1. The reason why you could put this over 1 is because every whole number can be written as a fraction just by putting it over the number 1. And now that we are an expert at multiplying fractions, we could do 1 times 40 on the top, which is 40. And we could do 2 times 1, which is 2. So we have 40 over 2. Earlier we learned that fractions just represent division. So 40 divided by 2 would be equal to 40 divided by 2. 40 divided by 2 is 20. So 1/2 of 40 is equal to 20. So what is 1/4 of 60? I would do 1/4 times 60. Put 60 over 1 and multiply. 1 times 60 is 60. 4 times 1 is 4. 60 over 4 is the same as saying 60 divided by 4 is equal to 15. So 1/4 of 60 is equal to 15. Okay, well done. Let me erase this. And I think we have 1 or 2 more topics to go. Oops, nope, maybe 3 or 4 more topics to go. I'm teaching you guys so much in this one. I hope you guys are learning and this is helping you. If you're learning something and this is helping you, please let me know so that I can continue to make videos like this. All right, comparing fractions. So comparing fractions, we're going to use a method that we learned earlier. So if I was comparing 1/3 to 1/2 and I wanted to know, okay, which one is bigger, which one is smaller. So we're either going to have to figure out, okay, we have to have them have the same denominator. But we did this when we were adding fractions. And a very simple trick to make them have the same denominator is by multiplying each of them by the opposite denominator. So I would multiply 1/3 times the denominator of 2. And that will be 1 times 2 is 2 over 3 times 2, which is 6. So the new fraction would be 2 over 6. And then I would multiply 1/2 times this denominator, which is 3. And so it would be 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. So now we're comparing 2 over 6 to 3 over 6. So because they have the same denominator, we can clearly see which one is larger. This one is the larger fraction. So we're going to say that this is larger. 2/6 is less than 3 over 6. A lot of students, they struggle with the equal sign, the less than sign, and the greater than sign. So the way that I learned this is the alligator wants to eat the larger number. So I make little teeth marks for my students, and I pretend like, that's an alligator trying to eat it. Okay. So the alligator wants to eat the larger number. So which number is larger, 2 or 6? 6. So the alligator mouth is going to be open towards the 6 to show that 6 is larger than 2. Okay, what about 4 and 1? The alligator mouth is going to be open towards the 4 because 4 is the larger number. But we are going to read these in 2 different ways. So how do you read this? Because you can either say less than or greater than. So how do we know which one is the less than sign and which one is the greater than sign? Well, if you read this, If the alligator mouth is facing away from the first number, it's less than. 2 is less than 6. If the alligator mouth is facing towards the first number, you would read it 4 is greater than 1. So this is when the alligator mouth is facing towards the right. This is the less than sign. And when the alligator mouth is facing towards the left, this is the greater than sign. And everybody knows the equal sign because it's only fair that you know it. Get it? It's only fair. It's equal. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and not lose our energy. Let's not lose our focus. Remember, the reason why you're doing this is so that you can relearn math. It's very important. So now we know how to compare fractions. We just multiply by opposite denominators, and then once they have the same denominator, you can easily compare them. You compare them using equal sign, less than sign, greater than sign, and now you know how to put them in between numbers. You make the alligator mouth face the larger fraction or the larger number. Okay, so we also talked about comparison signs. Now we're just going to briefly cover word problem words because some people struggle to know, okay, I have a word problem, Miss Amber, but then I don't know exactly what they're asking me to do. So on your piece of paper, if you're taking notes, just write some of these words. So in math, especially in word problems, they're trying to get you to either add, subtract, multiply, or divide. They're trying to get you to do one of those actions. So if they're trying to get you to add, they'll use words like, what is the sum of all the money that the person spent? Or what is the total amount? Or what is it all together? So these are some words that they use when they want you to add. Or sometimes they say, okay, Amber is three years older, or Amber has 3 cards more than Jessica. So that is the word more also shows that, okay, you're adding. They have more, there's more numbers. Okay, to show that they want you to subtract, they use words like difference and less than. So if they say Amber is 3 years, well, you wouldn't say less than. If you said Amber is 1 mile behind, that doesn't count. Just if you see the word less than, then that means that you're subtracting. Multiplying, you usually see the word times or the word per. So if I told you that I get paid $9 per hour, you're multiplying the $9 that I make times the hours that I work. So per, times, sometimes you see the word each. I gave the girls 5 pennies each. So if I give 5 pennies each and there's 5 girls, then you would do 5 times 5 and the total amount of pennies would be 25. So you'll see the words like each, times, and per. And then divided by words are, you sometimes will see the words like into, or you'll see the word average. So into, or what is the average amount for this? So you would add all the numbers together and then you would divide to find the average. So those are the basic word problem words. I'm going to make a video soon with different word problems that I created. They're lower level word problems, but they're good to practice because they allow us to practice knowing what those words mean in word problems. All right, so now we're going to talk about finding the average, the median, the range, and the mode. So we're so close to being done, you guys. Thanks for sticking with this. I know that this was a lot, but you guys are doing great. So finding the average, finding the median, finding the range, and the mode. Okay, so average, so say you got a 98% on a test, you got a 95% on your test, you got 100% on your test, well done, and you got a 68% on your test. Average, if they said, what is your average test score? What you have to do is you have to add up all of your test scores, and then you have to divide by the number of tests you took. So this is the first test, second test, third test, fourth test. So you would add up all your test scores and divide it by the number of tests you took, which was 4. So I would go ahead and do this. I'm just going to go ahead and do this on the calculator just to save us some time. 98 plus 95 plus 100 plus 68. That's 361 over 4. Remember, 361 over 4 is 361 divided by 4. So divided by 4, the average would be 90.25%. So that would be your average. So anytime you want to find the average, you add up all the information that was given you and then count how many pieces of information were given to you. So if I asked you to find the average of 10, 12, and 13, you would add 10 plus 12 plus 13, and you divide it by how many numbers that is. That's 1 number, 2 number, 3 number. So you divide it by 3, and then that answer would be your average. Okay, now we're going to talk about how to find the median. So we usually see average, which is also sometimes called the mean. Now we're going to find the median. Median just means middle number. So middle number, so say I have 35, 39, and 25. So most students remember that median means middle number, but sometimes they'll just go, oh, the middle number is the number in the middle, 39. Technically, the median is in the middle, but you have to order the numbers from least to greatest. Right now, these numbers are not in order. I would have to order them 25, then 35, then 39. Now they're in order from least to greatest, and now I can circle the median or the middle number, and the middle number or the median would be 35. So anytime you're finding the median, just put the numbers in order and then circle the middle number. Great job. Now we're going to find the range and the mode. So if I have 2, 5, 7, 9, and 14, the range just means take the highest value. So the highest value would be 14, and subtract the lowest value, which is 2. So the range would be 12. Again, range just means take the highest value and subtract the lowest value, and you get the range. Very simple. So say the answer choices were only 5, 7, and 9. Which one is the range? Well, you take the highest answer, 9, subtract the lowest answer, 5, and the range is 4. So that's super simple to find the range. And then the mode just means the number that is most frequently seen. So you could have 2, 4, 6, 6, 9, 9, and 9. So mode just means the number that appears the most. So the number that appears the most in this list is the number 9. So 9 would be the mode. So that's a very simple thing. So mean means average. Median means middle number when the numbers are in order. Range means you take the number that's the largest and subtract it by the smallest number. And the mode is the number that's most frequently seen. All right, so now we're going to talk about representing probability, and we're getting so close to the end, guys. So probability is very important. It's one of the most important things that you guys are going to learn, because it's going to be one of those things that keeps reappearing and reappearing on your standardized tests. So representing probability. The way that you can represent probability is by means of a fraction. You can also represent it by means of percentage and a decimal. But one of the most common ways is to be represented as a fraction. So the way that you represent probability is you put the total on the bottom and you put the specific ask on top. So I'll give you guys a probability example. So say I have some marbles, and these marbles, 2 of the marbles are blue, 1 is green, and 3 of them are yellow. Okay, so they'll say, if these marbles are in a bag, what is the probability of me picking out a blue marble? So the specific ask is for a blue marble, and then on the bottom, we would do the total number of marbles that are in the bag. So how many blue marbles are there? 1, 2. So my numerator would be 2. How many total marbles are in the bag? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So my fraction would be 2 over 6. Now, I'm going to go ahead and reduce that because I'm dealing with fractions. It's always good to reduce fractions. So I'm going to divide the top and bottom number by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So 1 over 3 would be how to represent this event in a fraction form. So representing probability, you put the specific ask over the total. Now let's talk about probability outcomes. And this is the last part. And this is one that tricks a lot of people sometimes, but we're not going to make it too difficult. So there's 4 probability outcomes. So an event can be certain, it can be impossible, it can be very likely, or it can be not likely. Okay, what does this mean? If an event is certain, that means there's a 100% chance of something happening. If I have 3 marbles in a bag and all of them are yellow, then it's a 100% chance of me picking out a yellow one. It doesn't matter which one of these marbles I choose. If I choose 1 marbles out of these bags, because there's only yellow in the bag, there's a 100% chance of me picking out a yellow marble. So that chance is certain. The chance of me picking out a yellow marble out of this bag is certain, 100%. Impossible is an event that cannot happen because that chance is not even, there's not even a possibility of it happening. So say we have these same 3 marbles in a bag, and I say, what is the probability of me picking a blue marble? You're going to be like, Miss Amber, there's no chance of you picking a blue marble because there's no blue marbles in the bag. So it's impossible. It's a 0% chance of it happening. There's not even a single marble that in that bag that's blue, so it's impossible. So if someone says, oh, is this certain or impossible? Certain is a 100% chance of it happening. It's the only choice in the bag. Impossible means there's a 0% chance of it happening. There's no chance of it because there's no colors of that in the bag. Now, very likely and not likely, those are the ones that get students confused sometimes. So very likely means there's a high chance of it happening. So I would just say like a high chance of it happening. Not likely is a low chance of it happening. So I'll give you an example of this. So say we have 5 marbles and one of them is blue and the rest are yellow. If I asked you, what is the probability of getting a yellow marble? Which one of these words would you use? You wouldn't say certain because it's not a 100% chance, because even though there are a lot of yellows, there is a blue one in the bag. So there's a possibility that you pull blue. It's a low possibility, but there's a possibility. So I wouldn't say certain. Would I say it's impossible to pick yellow? I would not say impossible because there's a bunch of yellow in the bag. Would I say it's not likely for you to pick a yellow? Well, there's a lot more yellow in the bag than there are blue marbles. So it's not likely because it is actually very likely. The chance of me pulling out a yellow marble is actually highly likely because there's more yellow marbles in the bag than there are blue. So this case, to pull a yellow would be very likely. Okay, but what if I said, well, how would I describe pulling a blue one out of the bag? So let's go through those choices again. It's not certain because there's not a 100% chance of picking the blue. All of them are not blue, so there's not a 100% chance, so it's not certain. It's not impossible. Impossible means there's a 0% chance of this happening. Although there's only 1 blue and there's many yellow, it's not impossible because there is a blue in the bag. So there may be a small chance that you end up picking a blue. So it's not impossible. It's just very low chance of it happening. Okay, is it very likely that you're going to pick a blue? No, because there's only 1 blue in the bag and there's 4 yellow in the bag. So it's not very likely because it's a very small chance of you picking a blue. So then the answer for picking a blue must be not likely. It can happen, so it's not impossible, but it's a very low chance of you picking the blue out of the bag because it's one of the least colors in the bag. So we are done relearning math. 22 topics. I don't know how many minutes we've been going on at this, but we just went over 22 topics. And now you can use fractions, decimals, find percentages. Now you know probability. Now you know how to find median, mode, range, mean. Now you can change improper fractions to mixed numbers. Now you know how to add positive and negative numbers. You were reminded how to add fractions, how to change denominators, how to read decimals. All these things that we were able to accomplish in what I hope felt like a short amount of time. So you guys, you just relearned math. How do you feel? Or for some of you, you may be learning math for the first time. How do you feel? I hope I was able to help you guys even just a little bit. My tortoise, his name is Sherman. He was taking a nap by me on the floor, and now he's woken up, so I'm going to go spend some time with him. And so I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.